Get this. My fiance abandoned me when I was standing at the altar, but it gets so much crazier because these updates I'm about to give you guys, they're coming out years apart, so we're going to get a whole picture of the story about where he ran off to. And by the way, his family didn't even know where he went. His friends didn't know where he went. Heck, even his job didn't know where he went. He just put in his 2-week notice and vanished. A lot of people thought that maybe somebody took him. Maybe he got into an accident. But oh no, it's so much worse than that. Let me tell you about what I just found out. It's late. It's about midnight and my eyes can't take it anymore. Either from sleep or from so much crying. It's not easy to endure such harsh situations, and I think it takes a lot of strength to face situations of the current life. I mean ghosting, and I'm in the worst way. In a world where we're now connected, somebody not wanting to communicate with you is taken as an act of infinite offense. That's what happened to me, being left at the altar by my fiancé, Gray. We were together for 4 years. 4 years of my life, where we lived all kinds of experiences. He knows my life and my family, and I know everything about him as well. We even know each other's social media and bank passwords, and if he wants to, he can bankrupt me whenever he feels like it. But he won't be doing that. I say this because I, out of pure curiosity to find his whereabouts, decided to log into everything, but he changed the passwords or had already blocked or deleted his internet accounts. It seemed as if the world had eaten him alive. Well, he was someone who enjoyed his work, but these last few months I've been up to my neck in it, so when he said that he was going on a business trip, I took it as just another one of those, bunches. The typical 2-day week trip. But this time it was different. He only texted me sorry on the day he was supposed to arrive, and that was the last contact I had with him. From confusion, I went to despair, and then from despair, I went to sadness. I contacted his parents, his sister, his aunts, his uncles, and even those acquaintances of him I've never met, dying of embarrassment and having to contact them in this situation. But no one said a word. He just vanished, saying that it was a business trip. But when you know how men can be, you stop being surprised by so many things, and the most tragic thing about the whole incident, I'm telling you, is that he left just a few days before our wedding. We had already planned everything, the place, the decorations, and the guests, but he just decided to leave everything just like that. Out of the blue, leaving me living one of those fairy tales with the sad endings. This whole thing started to be discussed, and they would not even give a reason at his work either, as they told me he didn't have a trip scheduled for that week. He just left without looking back, and that's the reason why I think he abandoned me, rather than something bad happening to him. I went so far as to even look for his registration on the flight that took him to his destination on the trip, but where he was going was only the clue that I had. I didn't even know where else he could go or what his plan was. Leaving your fiancé at the altar just before you promise eternal love to her, that's stooping pretty low. And to top it all off, my family's going through a pretty delicate time as well, since my father's going through a divorce. You see, my mother, she passed away when I was 20, and just a couple of years ago, my dad remarried Barbara, a lady with plenty of money, and who used to appear a lot in our city's cultural scene. A snob, basically. They met, and just like Gray and I, they fell in love very, very quickly, but everything that goes up has to come down. At least, with my father. They were more considerate, as it was a slow process whether the love faded and they ended up resenting each other very much. The best thing would be divorce, but things are delicate because of the situation of mine with Gray. It's like our family's going through a very marked streak of breakups. Love dies with time. That's what I've been able to learn. In a month, the divorce will be final, and now we can grieve a little more peacefully. My dad's tried to make me feel good, but he only makes the situation worse, telling me that at least I was able to escape from the prison before it even started. Yeah, by prison he means marriage. I don't see it that way, but if I could have saved myself the pain of the divorce in the future, well, even better, I would have. Oddly, I say this because up until a while ago, I visualized Gray as the ultimate man for me, the one that I was going to spend the rest of my days with. Now I find him in the memories on my phone who seem to be on his side. I have to delete all his pictures, all of his images, otherwise I'll end up going crazy. I think I'll be giving you one of those updates that are usually done on this page once I finalize Dad's divorce. It's a delicate time for us, but at least I know more than one of you will be curious to know how we managed to pull ourselves out of this mess. After all, who doesn't love an underdog story, am I right? It's the perfect formula for success, they say. I feel like I'm the least likely person to get my spirits up right now, though. I'll update you guys when I hear something. Update number 1. The title is A Month Later. Well, my hopes went underground, and yes, it's official now. Gray gave no more signs of life, and we concluded that he made one of those I want to change my life 180-degree escapes, and sort of a midlife type crisis thing. Although he still had a long way to go before reaching the 40s, he left everything and everyone, family included, and ghosted us severely, changing numbers, and giving no clues as to where he might have gone. I started going to the psychologist, and she told me that, well, it was something that could happen as it's something common. It has been seen on several occasions, and she tells me it goes with things like lack of commitment, lack of effective responsibility, or that he just didn't know how to end it with me. And he did it in the most drastic way possible, but far from thinking that I'm the one who was at fault. I have to assume that he was a coward for doing that, and in case something happened to him, we would have a long way since been informing by the police. Since, well, we sent his specs to the last area where he is seen, but there was never a call about his whereabouts. The last thing was that a man with his characteristics was seen going to a couple of stores. I'll tell you, he did have a beard. And I know it's him because Gray grows quite a heavy beard regardless of whether he shaved the day before or not. However, that's the last known information that we got. And now, with the subject of my dad, that's another matter. The divorce is hitting him horribly, and he shut down his social media for a while so he doesn't have to put up with posts from his ex-wife, saying things like, "I'm still waiting for my Prince and Charming, hee." I mean, sis, you got divorced less than a month ago and you're already considering dating again. My dad has to learn to see the positive of getting out of there, and it's those kind of deals, yeah, deals that are just 2 to 3 lines away from becoming infidelity. Ugh. Of course, I don't want to offend the woman either. I still have Barbara and my network as friends, and while it's something causing me to cringe the way she writes, it's very, I don't know, attention-seeking. In therapy, I learned that this defense mechanism is also very normal. Not so healthy, really, because the best way to weigh a breakup is to give yourself time, not just go looking for the next person who comes along. I think that I'll actually delete her from my friends list. I know that if Gray is with someone now, he would be committing just that because he had no effective responsibility. They're just people who were driven by their more primal desires. Dad has not been in communication with the woman, and even though they were on good terms, it's best not to rush things. Some relationships take years to get back together first so that the wound can heal. And that's what the president of the Broken Hearts Club has to say for now. Well, hello again. Although it seems like it's only been 2 hours since I wrote the last paragraph. I had not uploaded it all before, but coincidentally something just happened, and I would rather give you a live update instead of making a whole new post. Well, someone just saw Gray. That's right. A former coworker said that he saw him in town. Told me about it all once in a text message, and I almost fainted. Mind you, this happened for a few brief seconds, and it was by pure coincidence seeing him coming out of a building downtown. I was shocked that he was walking around town just like that, with the risk of being found away by anyone he knew, or heck, even by me. According to his colleague, he was with somebody, with a woman, whom he could not really tell much details about. The woman had short dark hair, but that's really all that we could see about it. And before he could do anything like call out to her or get her attention, it was too late. Gray just up and disappeared again. The building he went to is a business office building where he worked a few years ago. An offices that no longer exist, but somehow he still has something to do with it. I'm about to go out and, ask about him. And I don't care if it takes a lot of door-to-door knocking. I'm going to need a good explanation from him so I don't charge him. So that solves part of the mystery. He left me for someone else, not as satisfying as I thought it would be, but at least it gives me more freedom to be able to hate him without any remorse. There's so much I would like to tell him right now, but the best I can do is just keep all the people who have been worrying about him informed. What happened to him? Well, it turns out he gave up everything in his life to run off with some lady, rejecting the years of trust and support given to him by the one who was supposed to be his fiancée. I'm hesitant to go out and ask about him as the tears are already living, and once they appear, it's hard to get rid of them, I feel like it's partly my fault, but at the same time, I know it's not. I feel like I will never be worth it to someone else, and if I do, the person will betray me and just stab me in the back. It's sad to think that the best case scenario I could ever come up with is a divorce. I'm gonna be divorced as a father. And even with that, it could mean that at one point I got to be genuinely happy. I don't understand why it's so hard to find someone good enough for you. I won't tell my dad about the gray thing, because if he knew, he would probably activate his protective instincts and look for him under rocks, so he can make him eat his own tongue. I don't even feel like riding anymore. Update number 2. Guys, this was updated 2 years later. Hey guys, how's it going? Long time no see, right? Well, I want to blow up a building, and if you ask me, thank goodness you didn't ask me, but it's been a while. It's been 2 years to be more precise. 2 years where I was in the process of healing and overcoming quite strongly. Only comparable perhaps to somebody who is in rehabilitation. For periods, I've even thought that I could border on misandry, but only living with my father was the only thing that could free me from the fate. I left the updates abandoned because I didn't want to relive those dark and murky moments of my life, but things have changed. Because of something that happened last night at the bar I went to. But before I tell you guys, I'll tell you that my life has been it's been a bit different since the last update. I left everything related to the unmentionable. That's what I decide to call him, the unmentionable. I'm talking pictures, videos, gifs, everything that reminded me of him, everything. Then I went through the strong psychological process and I started meeting more people. I went out more with my friends, I joined the gym, and yes, I ended up doing one of the most common things in these situations. I changed my appearance. Now, I let my hair down a lot more and dyed it blonde, a very radical change. But one that helped me incredibly in the whole process, and I felt like a new person, able to eat the world in one bite. That is, at least until I ended up encountering the ghost of my past. Last night, I went out downtown with my friends, something normal on a Friday night. A few drinks and a good music, it was all going good. But when I went to the bar to order the next round, I looked over and found the unmentionable right next to me, sitting there looking at me perplexed. It took him less than a second to realize what was going on, but instead of getting up and running away like a coward and saving himself the possible embarrassment, he simply got up from his seat and tried to walk the other way. But I wasn't going to allow that. I called him out and insulted him, without even waiting for an answer, and when I saw that he was going to turn around, I got the opportunity I've been holding back for him for, 2 years now? I slapped him. I slapped him so hard that I almost knocked him to the ground. I mean, sure, it left my hand hurting and even broke a nail, but at least I got that little bit of revenge. I swear for a second these updates I used to do popped into my head thinking that I would get back into practice, and oh boy, here I am. I ended up cutting his face a little bit, thanks to my little fingernail. Well, rest in peace, you did a great job. And I was lucky the music wasn't turned off, otherwise I'd go through a similar embarrassment. The bartender looked at us and showed us unamused. I think he sees scenarios like this quite often working at a bar, but then I saw that he was calling somebody and knew things could get messier. I saw that he was going to get up, not knowing if he was going to, quote, fight back or not. Although that would have been very low, right? Maybe the slap wasn't right, but in my defense, he brought it upon himself for everything that he did to me. But what happened next was a possibility that even in my weirdest dreams I could never have expected. A few seconds later, somebody came to his rescue. His date that night, and I guess it was, but who was it? Barbara. My dad's ex-wife. That is my former stepmother, and I don't know if you remember when I told you that she and my dad separated shortly after the unmentionable ran away with his tail between his legs. Well, now it turns out that they two were together. That could perhaps tie up a lot of loose ends in this story, but it would also generate too many doubts. I knew that she was the woman who had escaped with because of a detail that remained in my memory. Barbara's hair. Some time ago, when I told you that he had run away with a woman with short black hair, apparently it was Barbara, who had a makeover. Just like me, this thing about a woman choosing to change our hair every time big changes happen in our lives is becoming a bit stereotypical, and she had kept it that way, the same haircut for 2 years. She used to have a lot of gray hair, but now she looked younger, and all the touch-ups that she was wearing, but besides that, with the clothing that she was wearing, she could have passed for anyone else my age. Well, oh boy, the rest of the night was turbulent, and my friends showed up and made a fuss when they saw that the unmentionable was there. And worse, when they saw that he was with Barbara. Yeah, it was comical because a couple of my friends I made last year, so they didn't know the context of what exactly was going on so well. They just showed solidarity and continued with the insults, and it escalated until we had to be removed from the place, and I got to them about how they could have done that. Barbara, who now has a new snake mouth and attitude, said that it would not understand their deal at the time, much less would we understand it now. And she also said that they have no regrets, and the unmentionable was quiet, mute. He couldn't say a word. They left when I tried to call my father to tell him the news, but it didn't really matter. The bar, door, told me a couple of facts about them, you see. That they used to show up there at least once a month and that they were friends of the owner. And I don't know how feasible it would be to gather more information, but as I try to control my murderous rage, I'm also pondering whether it's worth the hassle. It's outrageous almost as much as it is for my father, and I feel we at least deserve an explanation for what happened. My friends, they support the idea and say I should take matters into my own hands. Well, I might do that, but I'd have to do a few little jobs first. But at least I can assure you that it won't stay that way. I'll update you guys when I learn something new. Update. 3 months later. Let me tell you something, man is a weak creature, and it's enough to throw him a bone to make him look for his own failure. That's what I did with the unmentionable, and it worked. Now, everything is at peace, but I won't leave without telling you how I did it. After the affair at the bar, I was left pondering over everything, whether I should do something about it or not, and I made the decision that yes, I deserved to have my revenge, but for that I had to be some kind of research of it first. So with the help of my friends, I was finally able to get some information from the people at the bar. One of them helped me talk to the manager of the place, and he told us that we were living on the outskirts of the city, in a house that I immediately realized what it was. It was Barbara's summer house where she used to spend some time while doing her paintings. I never went there, so I would not know that they were there. But when we asked more about their relationship, guys, I was absolutely stunned. It turns out, well, that they've been dating for a long time, long before my dad's divorcee or the disappearance, so it's not hard to deduce that this elopement was a plan of the two of them together. Something that personally disgusts me, considering that they were with a man and his daughter. They must have found something in each other that would make them morbid, and that's why they went on the adventure. And I was able to confirm this in the best possible way, from the mouth of the unmentionable himself. How? Well, by having his number. See, my friend went so far as to be able to have his new number so that she could contact him for someone else's number. And that's how I began to form my plan. Something as simple as pretending to be someone interested in him, so he would play along and then turn him against Barbara. Well, the plan worked, and it only made me hate the guy more. I mean, you abandoned me without looking back, and now you would also abandon the person you left your life for to someone that you don't even know? Well, that's being too much of a jerk in this life, and anyways, I started the conversation and he took the bait. I introduced myself as Sandra, a girl who had been seeing him for a while and wanted to get to know him more. The conversation got racy at times, and I held back the urge to vomit. It was a slow process, and that's why I did not write here for months. I was immersed in those conversations, and I wondered how that he had so much free time. And of course it was because Barbara was supporting him, and I already knew how the affair went. This guy, this useless waste of a man, all he wanted was to be maintained and not take responsibility for a job. So he gave up his life and the possibility of being the head of the family just to be a trophy husband, or even less than that. It was then that the conversation got a bit more serious, and I started to get more information about him. We got more intimate and talked about our past so we could get to know each other better, or something very fairy tale-like that he believed was complete in the end. And he told me about how he had made some, quote, strong decisions in his life, but how he believed it was the right things to do. It was sad when I asked him about his family, as he said he loved them dearly, and whenever he could, he would leave them a message. Yeah, that's false. They never heard of his whereabouts again, and I know this because I have every conversation with some of his family members, including his own mother, who assures me that he has not been seen in years. The part made my blood boil, though, and made me want to just abort the mission so I could call the police and get him a life sentence, but this was only in my mind. In real life, I had to stick to the mission, and was surprisingly easy since everything I said about myself was completely pretended. Of course, sometimes I had to be careful. I couldn't say in one message that I was raised in Chicago only to have it mentioned the next day that I was from Florida, since I was 4 years of age. I did well, though, and he bought the whole story, and actually he was pretty narcissistic, come to think about it, because we used to touch more on his life than we ever talked about mine. Anyways, the conversation, it went back and forth, and we struck up a good friendship. Of course we hit it off, since he was corresponding with somebody who had known all his likes and dislikes for years. That's when I realized that he had never changed, and that made me hurt even more, because I thought about how he didn't even have a second thought about when he decided to leave me, and speaking of that, if there was something that changed a little, it was his sincerity. He told me early on that he was dating someone, but that it was kind of complicated. It was then that he explained to me how his history with Barbara went. I thought I would end up being the anonymous mistress, and when the truth came out, let's just say I almost threw my phone at the wall and ended up breaking one of my stuffed animals out of anger. He tells me that, I quote, some time ago I dated a girl. Very pretty, very nice, but with whom I did not feel there was going to be such a promising future with. So we decided to break up and I left, but she didn't take it well. And that's when I met Barbara, but don't worry, it was just a few days, a thing, and that was it. She helps me cover some expenses, and I thank her for that, but that we're all fine. Well, no, I feel we're far from fine. It was rage, guys. Rage, fury, and anger, and then rage again. All combined into one person, me. I mean, how many lies could there be in one conversation? As I understood it, he only wanted to be with Barbara for her money, and whether by a pressure from him or his own, I don't know, Barbara separated from my father just to be with someone younger and more vigorous, pushing aside somebody who gave her too much love. Just like I was doing with this idiot. I felt as if at any moment I could send her a picture telling her it was a hoax, but I had to stick to my plan and make her life hell in the sweetest way possible. The conversation continued, and I had to bite my tongue as not to ruin everything, though he was texting me very strong things every now and then, like, "Oh, I would leave her for you. You're the most special woman I've ever met. Send me a photo, please." I wonder how many others he must have said that to in his lifetime, and every time he asked me for a picture, I would look for a medium-quality picture from my friend or something, so I could appease him a little. Those conversations only proved two things to me. The unmentionable was always a dirty, lying cheater, and an unfaithful man, and the other thing that it proved to me was I was also very deluded to have trusted him. But I no longer had time to cry. Now came action. It was enough with something as simple as this from another anonymous number, sending screenshots of the conversations to Barbara, who apparently still kept the same number. She never went through this life escaping things, perhaps because she was a much more recognizable figure. Well, the unmentionable told me that they were very discreet in town because of many personal situations. And obviously, it was so that we, his family, would not see them, but the charade, it would not go on to last for too long. I sent the screenshots to Barbara, and in just 2 minutes I received a lot of responses that said, "Who are you? What is this? How did you find this?" And I only wrote this before blocking her, and I quote, "Look at you. You who decided to spend your life with, ha!" And that alone was enough to unleash a calamity in the house. The next thing that happened, well, it was a thing of an imagination. I don't know many of the details, obviously, because I don't live with them, but I do know that things ended very, very bad. I knew it was because my friend, the one who helped me get the, unmentionable's number, was the one who told me not to block him, to see what he had to tell me, and trust me, it was the best decision of all. From a quote, "How could you do this to me?" to much, much stronger threats, he said that he was going to look for me and make me pay for everything, but to date, I don't think he's even walked out of the door of his house. Or maybe he did, because from what I heard, he's back in touch with his family, which leaves me with the knowledge that they're, done. So, mission accomplished. I was able to beat them at their own game of infidelity and deceit, and for just a few messages of lust, one person made her whole life, the sacrifices she made to leave it all behind, it's no longer worth it. If I'm the villain in this story, well, I'm glad I am, because that's how I was able to pay for the slaps life dealt me. Now, Barba's network have died down a bit, stopping posting all these updates, and the few things that she shares are the typical "love does not exist," "death to men," "men are heartless pigs." I told this whole story to my father, asking him for some permission to tell our testimony on the internet. He gave his okay after laughing about everything that happened, and he just told me that he was proud of me, as I managed to make the quote, "world have some peace." That proved to me that he was still a bit tipsy after the divorce, but after this, well, he'll now see the divorce as something else to laugh about. Not like before. I'm glad about that. I've been more cheerful since then. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but for us it was a hearty dish, and it's a dish that's fairly portioned out. Plenty for us, little for others, and those others now on their side having their lives ruined by what? A whim? Dad and I prefer a life like this, simpler and without so many complications. Thank you, guys. Cheers. So, guys, I want to mention the fact that the comments were pretty split on this one. And hey, I'm not saying the comments were against OP. No, almost everybody was in OP's favor. Some people were just mentioning that OP is a bit petty because she did not just move on and forget about this loser Gray and her stepmother, who were both turned out to be toxic cheaters. A lot of people think that she should have just moved on with her life, even if she ran into him again at the bar or wherever it was, slapping him, then getting involved and trying to get in between the grandmother and everybody. It was just a wild situation, and I do want to know your thoughts on it, guys. If you were in OP's position, basically what it is what would you have done? Would you have gone for that petty revenge? Well, a lot of people say OP deserved to get that revenge. Or do you think that OP should have even possibly left the city, went and moved somewhere else, and just continued her life without her toxic, abusive ex-lover, Gray? Drop it down below in the comment section, guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every day. And if you guys want to be a part of these stories, consider subscribing. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.